What is going on, everybody? It's Ken from Unlocking YouTube, and today we have Glenn from Hustler Hacks. He is totally inspirational if you're trying to figure out what you can do to get out of the rat race, how you can get out of work in your job, and if you want to make money on the side while starting up your YouTube channel, this dude knows how to do it. We get into it somewhat in our video, but I wanted to get back to talking more about how his YouTube channel has had success. So if you want to learn how to make money on the side while you're starting up your YouTube channel, stuff you can do with almost no money, literally no money, you can go dumpster diving and make money. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard of. His channel is called Hustler Hacks. Glenn from Hustler Hacks, he's a badass. Go check him out, and here is our interview. Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's so cool how I found you because, and you probably know about this already, but I'm sure you've heard of this dude, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh, yeah. Huh?
So he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about this, and like it just got into my head. Because when I was a kid, I used to slay it at yard sales.
Yeah.
And one time we were like moving stuff to the trash, and a couple people walked up and they're like, "Is this stuff still for sale?" And we were about to throw it away, and I was like, "Yes." And so it's been eating at my head, just eating at me, and I'm like, I got to look into it. And so I started looking it up, and I found your channel, and I'm like, I'm like, Glenn, he's doing exactly what I want. And so I was like, I'll reach out to you and see what's going on.
What did you search, or how did you?
Oh man, I must have searched. I was watching a lot of different stuff. I probably ended up looking at I probably searched flipping.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw a Reddit post like 6 months ago about some girl who's doing it full time and makes like $100,000 a year, and I'm like, that's so silly.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's no way that's happening. And then this guy comes along, and I'm like, all right, well now he's talking about it. And so I started looking into it a little more, and I find your channel. I'm like, my dude's making YouTube videos and hustling. I gotta talk to him.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for interviewing me, talking with me. I think that's cool. I'm a huge Gary Vee fan, so and the Joe Rogan podcast is just crazy too. I like listening to it in general. So when he was like a guest on Joe Rogan's podcast, I was like, man, this is gonna be crazy. Like I really want to see what they talk about and everything. And it was a good show, but I'm just a huge fan of Gary Vee in general. So
oh yeah, he lit a fire under my ass. Because I work a full-time job. Plus, I love YouTube. I've had various YouTube channels throughout the last like 10 years probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm like, man, I just want to make videos and sell stuff. It's so fun. So how'd you get into this, man? I read a little bit. I guess you went down that normal path of going to school and looking for a job, and talk to me a little bit about how you just were like, fuck it.
Well, I was, I had started on eBay, like, I think I joined eBay like in 2000, I think when I joined. And I was really just because my cousin was telling me about it, because we were just like huge, like, fans of like, sports cards and all that stuff. Like
Sure.
90s NBA basketball is like huge for us. It's all we ever watched, all that stuff. So he was telling me about eBay, and you can buy cards, you can sell cards, all this stuff. I was like, oh man, that's cool. And I bought a couple of things, but I really wasn't like super serious in eBay until I think later on down the road. I was a fan of like those McFarlane sports figures.
Sure.
And I guess being like an art student too, I still wanted to do something with art, and I started to like repaint them. And make them like customize them into like new players that no one really paid attention to. You always see the same ones over and over. And I was like, what about creating, like a custom figure of, a player that people like. So I started to do that. My first one that I did, man, how much did it sell for? Those figures are like $14.99 or something,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I think I sold my first one, like a custom one, was like $120 or something like that. Or I know, like I custom made it into this Raiders player. That Ronald Curry was his name, and he actually had like a snow catch that he made for the Raiders.
Okay.
And his agent was the one who ended up buying this figure from me, like through eBay. So he was, I guess, he was the one that ended up buying it and spending the money to buy it, and he liked it a lot, and sent it to him, positive feedback, all this stuff. So ever since then, I started making more and more of them, right? Like custom figures.
Yeah.
My then girlfriend, now wife, I had her doing like the basic like first layer of just white paint over them.
Yeah.
And then I started like customizing them and putting the logos and all that stuff on them. So a lot of them were selling like $80, $60, $50, like pretty consistently.
So you're making like 50
And
bucks a pop as a kid.
oh yeah, yeah. And well, I wasn't even like, well, I wish I was a kid at the
Or
time, but
you were a little
I was
older.
already, yeah, I was already, man, I think I was like first, second year into like basics in college and
Oh,
something.
that's
So
so
I told,
sick, dude.
yeah, so I told my parents, like I really don't want to go to school anymore. I just want to sell on eBay. And they're just like, you're already like a year and a half, 2 years in. You're almost done with basics. You're gonna go into, you actually have to go into your major and minor and you can finally graduate. I was like, yeah, I know, but I'm making like, I wasn't even making a whole lot. I was making decent money.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, I really like doing this, whatever. But I was like, you know what? I'll finish school, and after that, once school got tougher for me, because I was taking 5 or 6, classes and everything. It got
Yeah.
tougher. I didn't have enough time to really do that stuff anymore, and I was just doing, I was working at Toys R Us, and then I was working at the university and trying to get experience in my degree
Yeah.
and all that. So I really wasn't into a lot of the eBay stuff during that time. I took a really good break from it, and and sure enough, when student loans happened and I graduated, and I was like, how are these student loans going to get paid? I got to figure out something. I mean, I was doing good on eBay, but there has to be something else out there that I can do, to make some extra money. So, one of the days I just passed by like a garage sale and I was like, you know what, why don't I just stop by and just see what they have? And I was looking around and stuff, and I only found maybe like 2 items that I thought, they could probably sell something. And I asked my friend, who he also graduated same university, everything. He's a coach. I was like, you ever go to garage sales? And he's like, I go a couple of times. I was like, why don't we just start going to garage sales like on Saturdays? We go once in a while. And why don't we start getting a little serious about it? And he's like, yeah, all right, cool. Every Saturday we'll go. I'll drive his house 5 a.m. And we just started going to garage sales. And that was like my first like major hustle, being serious about it. That
Yeah.
like now I'm gonna start selling stuff, and I'm gonna have to start paying these student loans because even though I still had a full-time job, I graduated, I did all that, and I had a full paid salary job, but you have to start from the very bottom. You're not going to start off with a high-paying salary that
Oh, I
you're
know.
at the very top. I mean, it's not going to happen. So I was like, man, I really got to pay these student loans. It feels like they're going nowhere with this interest rate too, and I
Oh,
was
for
like, I have to
sure.
do something. So that's when I really got serious about it.
And so that's still, it blows my mind that this is even possible. But what's that first thing you bought at a garage sale? And so like you picked up those two things, but then you went out with your buddy and like, I'm taking this seriously. Well, what were you looking for? And then what did you end up finding?
He was doing pretty good. I think his little background already on like Nintendo 64 games and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, because during that time there wasn't a whole lot of people selling them compared to what it is now. Like, now it's like super tough to find some or Super Nintendo games, regular Nintendo games. But back then, it was a lot easier to find them. So you'd find them at garage sales, and he had done a little bit or found some success doing them. So we had found quite a bit of like systems and things like that for cheap that people are selling it for. And then um, the two like major huge finds that we had for the garage sales. Well, number one, I had the video about it. Disney statues that this guy, and we parked. We saw him like as soon as we parked, right? And it was like a huge Dumbo statue. Like it didn't look fake. It didn't look cheap. Like
Yeah.
it looked legit. And I was like, man, like that thing's huge. And then next to it, he had like a Mickey Mouse one. It had like Mickey and Pluto on there.
Right.
And I was like, this is kind of weird. Like, I wonder what this guy, like, why he's selling them. So, we asked him how much did he want for them, and he said $40 each. It was a demo one, and these things were heavy too. They're heavy, they're huge, and then $40 for the Mickey one. I asked him like, where'd you get these things? So apparently at the mall in my city, we had a Disney store, and they had a lot of these props that they would hang, on the very top of the store, or you can see it through the window, things like that. And he said, when they closed the store, they were selling these props at the mall.
What?
And yeah, they were selling, like the props and a lot of the displays and all that stuff where they hang the clothes. They were selling them.
Yeah.
And so he got them for his daughter or something, and they were just taking up too much room because she hadn't gotten older and wasn't really interested in anymore. And he wanted to just get rid of them. And so we're like, cool, would you take $20 each? We still negotiated with him. And he was like, yeah, I'll take 20 each.
Oh
Cool.
no.
Because they're just so huge, and I just don't want to deal with them anymore and stuff like that. And they had some little scuffs and little marks on them. I think the Dumbo one had like a little mini broken piece on it and stuff like that. But they're like, cool, we'll take it. We did some research on it, and sure enough, like these things, these things brought in some crazy amount of money.
What'd you make?
That I think, man, I'm trying to remember everything. Even going through my video, I'm like, man, how much did we sell? I think we did sell. I know for sure the Dumbo one sold for way more. I think we sold the Dumbo one for, I think, $1,200 is what
Oh
the
my
Dumbo one sold for.
What?
Yeah, the Mickey one sold for about 800. Shipping though was kind of tough because we did ship them through UPS and they did weigh quite a bit. Ended up going to someone I think in New York area for the Dumbo one, and later on I was doing more research about it, and someone they did take a couple of pictures, I think just Disney fans in general,
Yeah.
of like the actual statues inside the store, and I was like, man, that's crazy to see, when they had it late 90s, maybe early 2000s, of seeing those statues there, and I was like, man, that's crazy that they had them in store, and then we had them from a garage sale and then flipped them and made that money. And the other one was like snapback caps. And so I think maybe like 2, 3, 4 years ago, they were really, really popular 90s snapback caps.
Yeah.
And I went one of the times to one of the garage sales, and this older lady had a bunch of just like these 90s snapback caps, brand new. And, Charlotte Hornets, Los Angeles Raiders, and a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally see, especially because of the older teams. And man, she wanted only like $1 or $2 for the hat, so I bought a couple of them, tested them out,
Yeah.
and see if they were gonna sell and how well they were selling on eBay. And I was making like 35 a hat, 30 a hat, and I was
On
like,
$2?
oh man, on the $2 investment, I was like, oh man, I'm doing good on these. I need to go back like to find this lady because she had a whole bunch of them, and I only bought like 5 because I was testing it out. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they're even legit. I mean, they look legit. Everything seems good, and they were selling good. And then I asked my friend, like, you know what? Like, will you go with me back to this house? Like, do you think it's weird, kind of like creeping up on this old lady to get these hats? And he's like, nah, let's go find out or whatever. So sure enough, she had answered the door, and she's like, yeah, I have a bunch of them. And apparently they were, she used to have, I guess, like a store in the mid 90s or something. She ended up closing it down because I think also that fad kind of, fads come and go. So
Yeah.
I think that it just kind of went away, and she didn't really make that much money off of it after a while. So she just had a bunch of these hats in storage, collecting dust. She really wanted to just get rid of them, and was like, cool, well, we'll buy all of them. Like, we'll buy all the hats you have, And she ended up having just boxes and boxes and boxes. So she ended up making, I guess, pretty good money getting rid of them, at least, because
No
we
kidding.
still, yeah, at least like $250 a box, and a lot of different boxes because they're just full of hats. And in the long run, we just kept selling them over and over. I did Craigslist deals, I did eBay deals, I did Etsy deals, like any way that I could get rid of these hats, I just did it. And finally, 2 guys that had their own businesses, one in Miami, I think, another guy in Detroit. All they did was sell like snapback caps, and they just bought the rest of them from us. And we still had like 1,000 hats left,
Oh my
and
God.
they cleared out the rest of them from us. And I was like, oh man, this is good because it just got tiring, shipping out one hat at a time over
No
and over.
kidding.
But they were bringing in, some were bringing in $50. I would take best offers, 35, 40, 45 per hat. So
That's the craziest thing.
yeah,
And you just
so,
walked up on these at $2 a pop, so you're making like $40 a hat.
yeah.
And you sold how many do you think?
Oh man, figuring how those one guys, we had like 1,000 left. I think we had like 2,200 hats in the end when I first initially counted them. Yeah, so
I
it
can't even
was
wrap my
crazy.
head
We
around that.
had yeah, and these guys ended up getting a way better deal from us because we didn't do 40, 50 bucks because they were going to resell them and make their
Sure.
money off of it. But I think in the end, it was at least like 10 grand. I mean, that we made from just those hats. And he, we went half and half on all that stuff, and we were working hard at it. But it was just crazy. I think just first getting into all of that and getting this money in because I knew it was time to quit that job when my side hustle was
Yeah, you
more
just
money
made
than my
10
regular
grand. You're like, fuck you. I'm
job.
out.
You're like, I have how many bosses? 3? Yeah, I'm out of here. Like this is ridiculous. So yeah, um it just kept on going. I mean, I didn't even do thrift stores and stuff then. It was just purely garage sales at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously, those are the exception, right? These just gold mines.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
just,
Those will happen, once in a while. They do happen, but that's not like every single Saturday you're gonna hit, these awesome
oh, yeah.
Disney statues and
I just
stuff
want to,
like
like, if
that.
there's people out there thinking about jumping into this, I'm like, listen, he's not walking into this many hats every weekend, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, those were just like those, like you have those stories that you're just like, can't believe this happened. But for the most part, it was just being consistent, and you are making an extra 50 bucks, 100 bucks, 200 bucks. Just depending on the weekend. Some weekends it'd be rainy and there wouldn't be any garage sales, and
Right.
I got to list more. I got to do something, to make up for the time, because Saturday was our main time that we would go, and then finally I started adding thrift stores and other places to source.
So, yeah. So, since you can't hit something like this every time, what are you doing to fill in the rest of your inventory? What are some of the places
Yeah.
you're looking at? And, how are you actually making money on a day-to-day basis where you can just leave your job and make YouTube videos all day? Not all day, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and well, that's the thing though. I mean, I think with some of these big time YouTubers, they make quite a bit of money, and
Yeah.
that would be awesome to just do YouTube. You know what I mean? To make money from that. YouTube is like my least, I guess, income, I guess, coming in right now.
Right. Yeah.
And that would be an awesome goal to eventually just make money off doing YouTube. But I think to quit your job to have consistent money coming in, that's where I started to source at, like, man, after garage sales, for sure. After the garage sale, we would go to the flea market. So we did have like a flea market area. So we'd go there. So once we were done garage sale, we'll go to the flea market. Most of the time I'd start like at 5 a.m. I'd get home 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m.
Sourcing.
Like, I'd sourced, most of that morning. And then, you're going back to work on Monday.
Dang. So you're up all night just looking for stuff.
Yeah, I would. Well, Saturdays was like super busy. Sunday, I'd make sure I try to, like, list all of these things. Monday, back to work. And then I started to, like, you know what? Let me start hitting up some of these thrift stores, especially after work, because I would get off at 5. Traffic is always, out of control. I was like, instead of waiting here in the freeway for another 45 minutes, why don't I just go to the thrift stores that are somewhat in the area? So I started going to the thrift stores, sourcing, looking around. Mondays are pretty good deals. Like at Savers, they would have, a certain color. You'd get a certain deal. So I would go to the thrift stores and just try to, like, make the best of my time instead of, waiting around in traffic or wasting time doing things. So I'd go to thrift stores, Goodwill, Savers, and then I'd gone to, like, Ross a couple of times when I was like a teenager, and then throughout the years I kind of really stopped going because my mom liked that store. I really didn't.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I really didn't go all the time or anything like that, but I did know that they had, like, different jerseys and shoes and sports stuff. But I know I stopped going for a certain amount of point because I really didn't see any new things for a good while, especially while I was going to school. Like, I really didn't care to go to Ross or anything like that. But finally I was like, you know what? I hadn't been to Ross in a good while. I'm going to start going there and see what they have. And, sure enough, I ended up finding a couple of shoes and things like that. I was like, I could probably, sell this too. Maybe try this. So a lot of trial and error in there too.
Yeah.
So I added, like, Ross and Marshalls. We didn't have TJ Maxx, but Tuesday morning I also found some stuff there, and trying to, like, go to different regular, I guess, retail stores. And then I started going to like pawn shops and seeing what they had there. Some of them had like clearance games. I would negotiate for games and things like that. And now you're talking about a completely different, you know, like a full arsenal that you can just go through all of these places. So now
Yeah.
I'm not just, stuck with just garage sales. Now I have all of these places to add on to really help me stay consistent and source. So
So yeah, I get the hustle, man. Right now, I'm so like obsessed with this that I'm taking my instead of going on lunch breaks, I'm running to my local Ross every day because the
see,
lady
that's
at
what I
the
like.
yeah the lady at the counter is like, we get new stuff every day at 1. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna roll out of work at 12:45, get there right at 1, see what's going on, and I'm just like looking for shoes. And my biggest problem is like I've got the app, I'm ready to scan stuff all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of times what happens is I'll scan something and I'm like, it doesn't pop up on eBay or it doesn't pop up on Amazon. And I actually wrote you that comment about being
Uh-huh.
restricted in a ton of categories.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is my wife works in retail marketing for a
Oh,
company
okay, cool.
for Majestic Athletics. They make all the baseball jerseys.
Oh,
And
okay, nice.
she's like, yeah, right now everything's locked down. And she was actually saying that like eBay at some point too could like get a slap on the wrist for trying to sell that stuff.
Yeah, they're trying to get that. I know for like football jerseys, NFL, I think is what they're gonna try to start off first because there's just so many fakes out there.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm sure they'll have some kind of application process, but like right now in my head it's like save up some money, get that Nike deal from Amazon or whatever, and then just try to sell the shoes like crazy. But like
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I guess back to what I was saying is like I don't know exactly what's a good area to start with. Like if
Mhm.
somebody is in high school and they're having trouble finding a job and they want to go out and start sourcing and they have no idea what they're doing, what's something that's like understand like they can focus on like niche wise, right? So they can just look at sneakers or they can just look
Mhm.
for pants. What's a good area to start?
Um, surprisingly, well, actually, maybe not really surprisingly, but I do get this question a lot, especially
Oh
on
yeah,
email. How do I start, or what do I do? What do I look for? And I tell everybody that you may not have a lot of money to start off with because I know I didn't.
yeah,
So garage sales, like the low, spending low money, is what I wanted to do in the very beginning because I didn't have much. So but before that, though, I would just start off with the things that I currently had that I no longer wanted, so that I wasn't spending any money first.
mm-hmm.
So I'd be like, okay, cool. Well, I really don't play this video game anymore. I'll sell this first. I really don't use this portable CD player because nobody uses them. I'll sell this. And I started to do that stuff first just to try to get some money in.
Uh huh,
After that, I tell everybody you have to start off with what you know because
yeah,
I think you'll have more of a passion for it if you like sneakers. If you like purses, then try to go for purses. Like you have a little bit of knowledge into it. I know my friend was like huge at the time on like Coach purses. They'd be on there for like $20, and then he would resell those for like 100. Um,
hmm. I
so
might
if
start
you
to
if
like
you
purses.
I don't know, right? Everybody's gonna start like purses now.
Yeah,
So if you like, if you know about purses, you know about sneakers, maybe video games is your thing, and you've collected them, you kind of know a little bit about them and things like that. Then I would go into that first. So and try to look for these things, or you can look at Craigslist to see who's selling them, and maybe you can negotiate to get those. Maybe you can look up the garage sales, and some people will actually put, "I'm selling video games." $2 a piece or $5 a piece or things like that. So I started off with what I knew, which
yeah.
was like sneakers, video games, jerseys, stuff I was already a big fan of and I had some knowledge in. And then I started to just have some eBay nights where I was just like researching like what is selling right now in clothing, what is selling right now that's
Mm-hmm.
not sneakers, and going through the completed listings to see what was selling and trying to learn a little bit more. And then I started watching YouTube videos. What are other people doing? So that did help me, I think, learn a little bit more than just my basic knowledge of stuff.
Yeah, and so really like the biggest reason I wanted to call you is how can somebody, start a YouTube channel and then make some money? Because I'm sure as you're well aware right now, YouTube is really hard to make money on.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad that we can give somebody kind of like a starter package here, and like obviously everybody should check out your channel. It's awesome. And so I want to know, like, what was the transition point where you're like, I should start documenting all this, and how did you get into, how did you start YouTube?
And just in general.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I did start YouTube when because I was finding these like sneakers at Ross, and I didn't see anybody really doing that yet, like on YouTube. And I saw maybe like one or two videos of people finding, different Jordans that are worth a lot of money. And I was like, well, I've been finding them. Why don't I start making some videos of the stuff that I find, the sneakers that I find at Ross? So I started to do that. And then after I think a good like 15, 20 episodes in, like it was harder for me to make time to edit. I was working.
Right.
That's when I like got my full-time job, and I was really focused on that. I'm out of college. I'm a young pup ready to like rise, in this career. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I'm excited and all that stuff. So I really didn't have any time to do it. And I was really focused on the career stuff. So I let it go for like 2 years. And I was like, all right, hopefully maybe one day I'll get back into it. And I think at the time I had like 1,300 subscribers or something.
Okay, that's good.
So it had kind of grown a little bit.
Sure.
But I got out of it and I was like, oh man, I really liked doing it, but I just didn't have the time. So now that me and my friends started doing the garage sales and I was making time to do that, I was paying off the student loans. I was gaining momentum on that. And when I was done, paying off the student loans, I just felt like I had something to offer to like help other people going through the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because student loans for me, it was like a huge struggle. Like it felt like they were never going down. And I felt like if I made something that could relate to what I'm selling, how I'm making money, and how other people can also find this information useful to pay for their own loans, then I think it would be a good, successful channel. I can help people and meet people. And that's really why then I changed the name to Hustler Hacks.
So that's a good name, by the way. I like it.
Yeah, thanks. And I really wanted to focus on that. And now I was still talking about like the Ross finds for maybe those past subscribers that like that stuff. But now I'm talking about how I'm like reselling these things to make money. So I still had that aspect in there, but now I added on some new stuff. I added on the thrifting, some of the garage sales stuff. I had some stories now that I could kind of tell, and just trying to, help people is the main thing, really.
So yeah. So what's been like the most, I guess, how's this been rewarding for you, right? Like, have you had any success stories where like somebody writes in like, dude, I ran out to Ross, made $300 this weekend. And what is that like?
I get those emails. At least I'll have like once a week where someone's like, I found these $20 cleats and I sold them for $120. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like, which ones did you get or what did you find? And they show me a picture of them or their actual listing and they're super pumped about it. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. And I think those are like the best things, when you get those emails or comments or, people telling you how much you've like helped them or they never really knew about it. And now they started flipping stuff. And that's like the best thing for me, especially when I meet people in person. Sometimes it catches me like a little off guard because it's happened like at Ross, Nike outlet store, or else like those typical places that you would watch my videos probably. And then they're like, you're Hustler Hacks. And I'm kind of like frozen a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah,
I am.
That's like the best. Like that's the best thing. Just meeting people in general and knowing that I helped them some way.
And when did you really start to see your channel take off? Was there like a moment where, or like a particular video, or what kind of sparked your channel to go from 1,300 to what are you at now? 2,500 or 25,000 or 22,000?
Yeah, it's almost there, like 22,000. And I think what happened was just being consistent. Like I think, like I told myself, I know it's not a lot, but I'll do one video a week. Like at least people will know that I'm being consistent with it. I'm not stopping because I already know what it felt like to stop, and it sucked because it was very hard to come back. Yeah, it was super hard to come back. Even when I had those first like couple of months, like people were like, where'd you go? You know, what happened? You know, what you were making pretty good videos, you had some momentum, and then it was just like it froze, and I was like, man, this sucks. Like,
The worst.
hopefully I can get back. Yeah. And you know, I still consistent with it. At least the first 3 or 4 months, it was not really growing that well at all because I'd been gone for so long. But I just told myself, you know what, one video a week, keep it consistent, keep it going. It'll keep, you know, it'll grow.
It does.
And then I started talking to other, like, you know, YouTubers and seeing what they do, or trying to, you know, just joining like different Facebook groups and kind of putting in my 2 cents on fines and different things. And by the way, maybe you want to check out my channel, you know, try to put that out there. And then they would check it out. Hey, that's cool. I'll subscribe and things like that. And it just started kind of, you know, gaining momentum from there.
That's really interesting because one thing I'm always telling people is like, obviously my whole channel is built around new, like brand new content creators, fresh out the gate. Like these are the people who've done it, right? It's still possible, especially working with people like you who've got a newer, like, I guess it's not super new, but have experienced newer success, right? And so one of the things I always tell everybody is you can't just blow up people's walls. Like, hey, check out my channel.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the time, I don't even think people know it gets marked as spam now. It's not even you that has to go through and delete it. Like, if you link to your channel or you start blowing up and spamming people, it just gets taken down right away. But I really like that you are finding like-minded people through Facebook. That's really smart.
Yeah, it was a lot of different like reseller groups or sneaker collecting groups, or there was even a couple of just like Ross, people that find stuff at Ross or things like that. So that's probably like the most important thing, I guess, too. Like we talked about starting off with what you know as far as reselling. It's probably the same thing you would probably say for YouTube and what you know, what you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about something, then it's not good to go into anything for money when it comes to YouTube or reselling, because it may not happen. You may not make the money that you might think you might do in the first couple of weeks, because everything takes time. All about being patient and keep on hustling and you know, and sticking with it. But I think that's the same thing for YouTube. I mean, if you have a passionate for a certain subject or something you've always been doing, there's probably someone else out there that, you know, wants to watch your videos and they like what you're into.
Yeah, and you never know, like that you might be getting one person who's watching your video every time, and that one person eventually is going to tell somebody else to check it out who enjoys your stuff too. And so
yeah, exactly.
It feels like one of those things where it's just like you're just constantly running into a wall, like maybe not getting any traction, and then just one day you got a video that all of a sudden people see, and then that's it.
Yeah,
But
exactly. And then they'll keep telling other people, and it just keeps growing from there.
Yeah, but you're really onto something that you need to be motivated with what you're doing. The very first person I talked to, I actually had made videos with probably 4 or 5 years ago, and both of our channels were pretty successful, and we both did the same thing, which is we were making videos that in the long run we hated. And so we were playing video games. It was in that time when like video game channels were way more popular. We just kind of got tired of playing Call of Duty, you know?
Yeah.
And then both of our channels just slowly, because we were inconsistent. We weren't even, there were sometimes weeks we didn't even upload once. And I even changed what I was uploading at one point, and that was just the death of the channel.
So what were some of the comments, or what were some of the, I guess, reaction to posting different things?
Well, so here was the thing is like, I mean, people, I think for the most part enjoyed what I was giving them as like my personality, but, and so like people weren't really hating so much, but what would happen is so I went from playing video game, Call of Duty, and then I started putting up some Minecraft stuff just to like try to, you know, break up the monotony. But what had happened was I started getting people who enjoyed watching Minecraft. And so the issue was then I had like two fan bases, I guess you could say, that were like, no, I want Call of Duty. No, I want Minecraft. And I was actually just pissing off everybody. And then what really killed me is I made a third thing. And so now like people who were here for Minecraft are leaving when I upload this, and people here for Call of Duty are leaving when I upload Minecraft. And it was just the slow descent of my channel, and there was no like coming up. Because at that point, you know, it was probably 70% were there for my original stuff and 30% were there for Minecraft. And I had 100,000 subscribers, and so at that point it was just like me. And on top of all that, I was tired of just making video game stuff. So I think what I really like doing is talking to cool people and just hearing your story. I think YouTube's the greatest platform that's ever existed when you can just hold up your phone or hold up whatever gear you got, talk into it, and be like, dude, I'm at Ross. I just saw this crazy pair of LeBrons. People that like that. So I think it's good to encourage that creativity among just the whole world to get out there and do it.
And that's a tough thing, though, about YouTube, though, is that I know, like, for your example, you brought in Minecraft, but I think also what you wanted to do was bring in a new audience. I mean, I think that sometimes the audience does get a little tired if it is a little too repetitive. Like at one point, I was getting comments all the time like, hey, when's the next Ross Finds video? Hey, when are you going to go to Ross again? Hey, what's going on with Ross?
I know it so well.
Yeah. and then, but I just uploaded a brand new savers video or something, like a thrifting video. And then so that would happen, and then would keep asking for that stuff. But really, I wanted to, try to help other people that maybe wanted to go to thrift stores that maybe don't really care that much about the sneaker stuff. So then that would kind of happen where people will kind of clash. Now it has gotten a little bit better because I think that the people that were discovering and going to Ross and trying to like flip that stuff are also taking a look at Goodwill, Savers, thrift stores, and seeing what else that they could also, flip. So
yeah, I mean, you've branded yourself like originally you might have been Ross guy, right? But now you've just kind of branded yourself as the hustler, right? Yeah. And so you're just flipping stuff everywhere you go. And I think people come for not only just like, hey, how can I make a buck on the side, but your personality too. So what you've done is kind of stayed in the same like niche of videos where I don't think you could get away with that with video games. Like people want to see first person shooters and then you go and play some game where you're building houses with fake blocks and it just people get pissed off, but you have established your brand in a way that you can do that.
And that would have been like going from like Xbox to all of a sudden you're like Xbox 360 at the time. Like remember how it was like big time wars, like if you're just going straight 360 and then you're going all of a sudden your PS3, like that would have been like, what is this guy doing? Like, I thought he was loyal to
people. Would have thought you lost your mind. Yeah, I know. Well, so listen, man, I don't want to eat up your whole night, but this is awesome. I got a couple questions I got to ask you afterwards too.
Okay, sounds good.
I almost went too deep into just flipping, and I wanted to really bring it back to YouTube quick. And
okay, no, that's all good.
So where can people catch up with you too?
Hustler Hacks on YouTube, Hustler Hacks on Instagram. They can email me, hustlerhacks1@gmail.com. And I try to answer every question that I can, every comment that I can.
He does. He really does.
I try to do as many, anybody that wants to. I've had quite a bit of people like, hey, can I just ask you a couple questions on Skype or Google Hangout or something? I'm like, all right, cool. Let me try to just get like a little bit of time and I'll gladly do it. Like, it just any way that I could help somebody. I think that's like the best thing that you can do for somebody because everybody's in different situations financially, or maybe they just want to get ahead in maybe they just want to leave their job like I wanted to do. Maybe they just want to grow maybe they want to grow a YouTube channel. Maybe they want to do something. I mean, who knows? If I can help in any way possible, I'll gladly answer any question. So
awesome, man. Well, that's that. And I want to catch up with you when you get 50 or 100,000 people. That's one of the things good. I want to have these recurring channels, and I think yours is going to grow pretty quick. This whole, especially with Gary Vee and this flipping, it's all catching on, man. So thank you for being on here, huh?
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.